To FWF by James Clerk Maxwell. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. To FWF, 6th of April 1853. Farrar, when o'er Goodwin's page late I found thee poring, from the hydrostatic sage leaky memory storing, or when groaning yesterday, needlessly distracted by some bright erratic ray through a sphere refracted, then the quick words, oft suppressed, in my fauces fluttered, thoughts not yet in language dressed, pleasing to be uttered. He that neatly gilds the pill hides the drug but vainly. So in chance-sown words I will speak the matter plainly. Men there are whose patient minds, in one object centred, wait till through their darkened blinds truth has burst and entered. Then, that ray so barely caught joyfully absorbing, they behold the realms of thought into science orbing. Thus they wait, and thus they toil, thus they end in knowing, like good seed in kindly soil taking root and growing. Men there are whose ambient souls, in rapt intuition, seize creation as it rolls, whole without partition. Not for them the darkened room, lens and perforation. Enemies are they to gloom, foes to insulation. Theirs the light of perfect day, theirs the sense of freedom. Dungeons and the tortured ray serve for those that need 'em. Song to them of right belongs, eloquently flowing, sweeping down time-honoured wrongs, surging, burning, glowing. Songs in which all hearts rejoice, songs of ancient story, songs that fill a people's voice marching on to glory. Thus they live and thus they love, thus they soar in singing, like glad larks in heaven above, dazzling courses winging. Here, I prithee, turn thy mind to a little fable of the fledged and rooted kind, bird and vegetable. Pensive in his lowly nest once a lark was lying. Often did he heave his breast, querulously sighing, for he saw with envious eyes pampered vegetation, cabbages of goodly size swoln with emulation, till their self-enfolded green, tight crammed, wide distended, seemed in sphered pomp to mean all that it pretended. Long he sought to win their place in the gardener's favour. Well he caught the silent grace of a plant's behaviour. All was useless, he confessed, earth for him unsuited. Terror seized upon him, lest he should there be rooted. Cabbages are cabbages, larks are larks, he muttered. Then, light springing in the breeze, through the sky he fluttered. Farrar, mark my fable well, fling away ambition. By that sin the angels fell into black perdition. Cut the calculus and stop paths that lead to error. Think, below the junior op gapes the gulf's grim terror. Then your mathematic wings, plucked from off your shoulder, will express what Horace sings of that rash youth, bolder than his waxen wings allowed, or his cautious father. Fall not thou from out thy cloud algebraic, rather try the pole, for none but fools I mean at college, reach the earth between two stools, tripaces of knowledge. Better in poetic rage sing through heaven soaring, than disfigure Goodwin's page by incessant poring. Footnote: the occasion of this and of the following poem is fully explained in a note from the Reverend Canon Farrer, which is here subjoined. To Professor Campbell, 30th of March, 1882. My dear Sir, I am sorry that the playful nonsense of my undergraduate days should be printed, but if the lines will in the slightest degree help to illustrate the extreme goodness and kind-heartedness of Maxwell, I am content. The circumstances were these. I went up to Cambridge very ill prepared in mathematics, and my classical work was much hindered by the considerable amount of mathematics required for a senior optime at which I aimed. In despair, I used to say to Maxwell sometimes that I should be plucked in mathematics, which in those days would have prevented my taking classical honours. He, in his ready sympathy and the kind interest which he showed towards me, took my words d'un trop grand sérieux, and wrote me the poetic apologue, in which he advised me to aim at poetry like a lark, while I left mathematicians to the distinction of being what Carlyle calls the quickest and completest of vegetables. The point of his advice was that I should give up the effort to win honour in the mathematical tripos, and should be content with the pole or ordinary mathematical degree, reserving my strength for the classical tripos. I sent him my reply the same day, and I remember he pressed me to let him read it at one of our social meetings, which I absolutely refused to allow him to do. Without this word of explanation, the verses would seem too nonsensical. Yours very truly, F. W. Farrer. End of footnote. Reply to the above by F. W. F. Te quoque vatem dicunt pastores. Virgil. O Maxwell, if by reason's strength and studying of Babbage you have transformed yourself at length into a mental cabbage, and if I've proved myself a lark at morn and blushing even, by soaring like a music spark through sapphire fields of heaven, our diverse fates are now reversed by strange metempsychosis. Into a cabbage I have burst, and scorn poetic posies. But you, a lark with twinkling wings o'er violet banks are soaring, your voice the dewy rose-cloud rings, while statics me are boring. Yet cabbage as I will, on earth my roots I cannot anchor, for at my mathematic birth was also born a canker. It soon will gnaw my roots away, but when I weigh a Koenix, I'll freely soar to realms of day, an emerald cabbage phoenix. Then talk not of the pole to me. I hate, detest, and scorn it. I am as earnest as a bee, but savage as a hornet. And if they pluck me, I will drown each pedant in a sonnet, and of their pluckings make a crown with golden plumes upon it. So if my cabbage growth be slow, I'll try to be a carrot, or still remain a lark, but no, I'll not be pole or parrot. Then if I fall beneath the mark, I'll shout with accent savage, it is a lark to be a lark, 'tis green to be a cabbage. End of To F. W. F. by James Clerk Maxwell. Lines written under the conviction that it is not wise to read mathematics in November after one's fire is out, by James Clerk Maxwell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. In the sad November time, when the leaf has left the lime, and the cam with sludge and slime plasters his ugly channel, while with sober step and slow round about the marshes low stiffening students stumping go shivering through their flannel, then to me in doleful mood rises up a question rude, asking what sufficient good comes of this mode of living, moping on from day to day, grinding up what will not pay, till the jaded brain gives way under its own misgiving. Why should wretched man employ years which nature meant for joy, striving vainly to destroy freedom of thought and feeling? Still the injured powers remain endless stores of hopeless pain, when at last the vanquished brain languishes past all healing. Where is then his wealth of mind, all the schemes that hope designed, gone like spring, to leave behind indolent melancholy? Thus he ends his helpless days, vexed with thoughts of former praise. Tell me, how are wisdom's ways better than senseless folly? Happy are those whom trifles please, dreaming out a life of ease, sinking by unfelt degrees into annihilation. Or the slave, to labour born, heedless of the freeman's scorn, destined to be slowly worn down to the brute creation. Thus a tempting spirit spoke, as from troubled sleep I woke to a morning thick with smoke, sunless and damp and chilly. Then to sleep I turned once more, eyes inflamed and windpipes sore, dreaming dreams I dreamt before, only not quite so silly. In my dream methought I strayed where a learned-looking maid stores of flimsy goods displayed, articles not worth wearing. "These," she said with solemn air, "are the robes that sages wear, warranted, when kept with care, never to need repairing." Then unnumbered witlings, caught by her wiles, the trappings bought, and by labour, not by thought, honour and fame were earning, while the men of wiser mind passed for blind among the blind. Pedants left them far behind in the career of learning. Those that fix their eager eyes ever on the nearest prize well may venture to despise loftier aspirations. Pedantry is in demand. Buy it up at second hand. Seek no more to understand profitless speculations. Thus the gaudy gowns were sold, cast-off sloughs of pedants old. Proudly marched the students bold through the domain of error, till their trappings, false though fair, mouldered off and left them bare, clustering close in blank despair, nakedness, cold and terror. Then, I said, these haughty schools boast that by their formal rules they produce more learned fools than could be well expected. Learned fools they are indeed, learned in the books they read, fools whene'er they come to need wisdom too long neglected. Oh, that men indeed were wise, and would raise their purblind eyes to the opening mysteries scattered around them ever. Truth should spring from sterile ground, beauty beam from all around. Right should then at last be found, joining what none may sever. End of lines written under the conviction that it is not wise to read mathematics in November after one's fire is out, by James Clerk Maxwell. A Problem in Dynamics by James Clerk Maxwell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 19th of February 1854. An inextensible heavy chain lies on a smooth horizontal plane. An impulsive force is applied at A, required the initial motion of K. Let ds be the infinitesimal link, of which for the present we've only to think. Let t be the tension, and t plus dt the same for the end that is nearest to B. Let A be put by a common convention for the angle at M twixt OX and the tension. Let V sub t and V sub n be ds's velocities, of which v sub t along and v sub n across it is, then v sub n over v sub t, the tangent will equal of the angle of starting worked out in the sequel. In working the problem, the first thing, of course, is to equate the impressed and effectual forces. K is tugged by two tensions whose difference, dt, must equal the element's mass into v sub t. 1. V sub n must be due to the force perpendicular to ds's direction, which shows the particular advantage of using dA to serve at your pleasure to estimate ds's curvature. For v sub n into mass of a unit of chain must equal the curvature into the strain. 2. Thus managing cause and effect to discriminate, the student must fruitlessly try to eliminate and painfully learn that in order to do it he must find the equation of continuity. The reason is this, that the tough little element which the force of impulsion to beat to a jelly meant was endowed with a property incomprehensible, and was given, in the language of shop, inextensible. It therefore with such pertinacity odd defied the force which the length of the chain would have modified, that its stubborn example may possibly yet recall these overgrown rhymes to their prosody metrical. The condition is got by resolving again according to axes assumed in the plane. 3. If then you reduce to the tangent and normal, you will find the equation more neat, though less formal. 4. The condition thus found after these preparations, when duly combined with the former equations, will give you another in which differentials, 5, when the chain forms a circle, become in essentials no harder than those that we easily solve in the time a teetotum would take to revolve. 6. Now, joyfully leaving ds to itself, attend to the values of t and of a. The chain undergoes a distorting convulsion, produced first at A by the force of impulsion. In magnitude r in direction tangential, 7, equating this r to the form exponential, obtained for the tension when A is 0, it will measure the tug, such a tug as the hero, plume waving, experienced, tied to the chariot, but when dragged by the heels his grim head could not carry aught. 8. So give A its due at the end of the chain, and the tension ought there to be 0 again. From these two conditions we get 3 equations, which serve to determine the proper relations between the first impulse and each coefficient in the form for the tension, and this is sufficient to work out the problem, and then if you choose you may turn it and twist it, the dons to amuse. Equations referred to. 1. dt equals m times v sub t ds. 2. m times v sub n equals t times dA over ds. 3. dv sub t over ds equals v sub n times dA over ds. 4. Second derivative with respect to t of s minus t times, open parenthesis, dA over ds, closed parenthesis, squared equals 0. 5. Second derivative with respect to t of a minus t equals 0. 6. T equals c sub 1 times e to the power of a plus c sub 2 times e to the power of minus a. 7. R equals c sub 1 plus c sub 2. 8. 0 equals c sub 1 times e to the power of a sub 1 plus c sub 2 times e to the power of minus a sub 1. V sub n over v sub t equals tangent beta equals minus the fraction The numerator is e to the power of the difference of a sub 1 minus a minus e to the power of minus the difference of a sub 1 minus a. And the denominator is e to the power of the difference of a sub 1 minus a plus e to the power of minus the difference of a sub 1 minus a. End of A Problem in Dynamics by James Clerk Maxwell. In memory of Edward Wilson, who repented of what was in his mind to write after section. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Rigid body. Gin a body meet a body flying through the air. Gin a body hit a body, will it fly and where? Ilke impact has its measure, ne'er ein hae I. Yet are the lads they measure me, or at least they try. Gin a body meet a body altogether free. How they travel afterwards we do not always see. Ilke problem has its method by analytics high. For me I kenna ane o' them, but what the war am I? End of In Memory of Edward Wilson, Rigid Body by James Clerk Maxwell. Valentine by a telegraph clerk male to a telegraph clerk female by James Clerk Maxwell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The tendrils of my soul are twined with thine, though many a mile apart, and thine in close-coiled circuits wind around the needle of my heart. Constant as Daniel, strong as Grove, ebullient through its depths like Smee, my heart pours forth its tide of love, and all its circuits close in thee. Oh, tell me, when along the line from my full heart the message flows, what currents are induced in thine? One click from thee will end my woes. Through many an ohm the Weber flew, and clicked this answer back to me. I am thy Farad, staunch and true, charged to a volt with love for thee. End of Valentine by a telegraph clerk male to a telegraph clerk female by James Clerk Maxwell. Lectures to Women on Physical Science by James Clerk Maxwell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 1. Place a small alcove with dark curtains. The class consists of one member. Subject: Thomson's mirror galvanometer. The lamplight falls on blackened walls and streams through narrow perforations. The long beam trails o'er pasteboard scales with slow decaying oscillations. Flow, current, flow, set the quick light spot flying. Flow, current, answer light spot, flashing, quivering, dying. Oh, look, how queer! How thin and clear, and thinner, clearer, sharper growing the gliding fire, with central wire the fine degrees distinctly showing. Swing, magnet, swing, advancing and receding. Swing, magnet, answer, dearest, what's your final reading? Oh, love, you fail to read the scale, correct to tenths of a division. To mirror heaven those eyes were given, and not for methods of precision. Break, contact, break, set the free light spot flying. Break contact, rest thee, magnet, swinging, creeping, dying. July 1874, 2. Professor Krzysztonovich, Ph.D., on the CGS system of units. Remarks submitted to the lecturer by a student. Prim Doctor of Philosophy from academic Heidelberg, your sum of vital energy is not the millionth of an erg. Your liveliest motion might be reckoned at 1/10 metre in a second. The air, you said, in language fine, which scientific thought expresses, the air, which with a megadyne on each square centimetre presses, the air, and I may add the ocean, are naught but molecules in motion. Atoms, you told me, were discrete. Than you they could not be discreeter, who know how many millions meet within a cubic millimetre. They clash together as they fly, but you cannot tell me why. And when in tuning my guitar the interval would not come right, this string, you said, is strained too far, 'tis 40 dynes at least too tight. And then you told me as I sang what overtones were in my clang. You gabbled on, but every phrase was stiff with scientific shoddy. The only song you deigned to praise was "Ginner body, meter body." And even there, you said, collision was not described with due precision. In the invariable plane, you told me lay the impulsive couple. You seized my hand, you gave me pain by torsion of a wrist so supple. You told me what that wrench would do, 'twould set me twisting round a screw. Were every hair of every tress, which you no doubt imagine mine, drawn towards you with its breaking stress, a stress, say, of a megadyne, that tension I would sooner suffer than meet again with such a duffer. Footnote: CGS system, the system of units founded on the centimetre, gram and second. See Report of Committee on Units, British Association Report for 1873, page 222. Erg, the energy communicated by a dyne acting through a centimetre. 10th metre equals 1 metre times 10 to the power of -10. Megadyne equals 1 dyne times 10 to the power of 6. It is somewhat more than the weight of a kilogram. Dyne, the force which, acting on a gram for a second, would give a velocity of a centimetre per second. The weight of a gram is about 980 dynes. See Sound and Music by Sedley Taylor, page 89. See Poinsot, Théorie nouvelle de la rotation des corps. See Professor Ball on the theory of screws, Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, 1873. End of Lectures to Women on Physical Science by James Clerk Maxwell. To the Chief Musician upon Nabla, a Tyndalic Ode by James Clerk Maxwell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. I come from fields of fractured ice, whose wounds are cured by squeezing. Melting they cool, but in a trice get warm again by freezing. Here in the frosty air the sprays with fern-like hoarfrost bristle. There liquid stars their watery rays shoot through the solid crystal. I come from empyrean fires, from microscopic spaces where molecules with fierce desires shiver in hot embraces. The atoms clash, the spectra flash, projected on the screen. The double D, magnesian B, and thallium's living green. We place our eye where these dark rays unite in this dark focus. Right on the source of power we gaze, without a screen to cloak us. Then where the eye was placed at first, we place a disk of platinum. It glows, it puckers, will it burst? However shall we flatten him? This crystal tube the electric ray shows optically clean, no dust or haze within, but stay, all has not yet been seen. What gleams are these of heavenly blue? What air-drawn form appearing? What mystic fish that, ghost-like, through the empty space is steering? I light this sympathetic flame, my faintest wish that answers. I sing, it sweetly sings the same, it dances with the dancers. I shout, I whistle, clap my hands, and stamp upon the platform. The flame responds to my commands in this form and in that form. What means that thrilling, drilling scream? Protect me, 'tis the siren. Her heart is fire, her breath is steam, her larynx is of iron. Sun, dart thy beams, in tepid streams rise viewless exhalations, and lap me round, that no rude sound may mar my meditations. Here let me pause. These transient facts, these fugitive impressions, must be transformed by mental acts to permanent possessions. Then summon up your grasp of mind, your fancy scientific, till sights and sounds with thought combined become of truth prolific. Go to, prepare your mental bricks. Fetch them from every quarter, firm on the sand your basement fix with best sensation mortar. The top shall rise to heaven on high, or such an elevation that the swift whirl with which we fly shall conquer gravitation. Footnote: Nabla was the name of an Assyrian harp of the shape del. Del is a quaternion operator, open parenthesis I of d over dx plus j of d over dy plus k of d over dz, closed parenthesis, invented by Sir W. R. Hamilton, whose use and properties were first fully discussed by Professor Tate, who is therefore called the chief musician upon Nabla. End of To the Chief Musician upon Nabla by James Clerk Maxwell. To the Committee of the Cayley Portrait Fund by James Clerk Maxwell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. O wretched race of men to space confined! What honour can ye pay to him whose mind to that which lies beyond hath penetrated? The symbols he hath formed shall sound his praise, and lead him on through unimagined ways to conquests new in worlds not yet created. First ye determinants, in ordered row and massive column ranged, before him go to form a phalanx for his safe protection. Ye powers of the nth roots of -1, around his head in ceaseless cycles run, as unembodied spirits of direction. And you, ye undevelopable scrolls, above the host wave your emblazoned rolls, ruled for the record of his bright inventions. Ye cubic surfaces, by 3s and 9s draw round his camp your 7 and 20 lines, the seal of Solomon in 3 dimensions. March on, symbolic host, with steps sublime, up to the flaming bounds of space and time. There pause, until by Dickinson depicted in 2 dimensions, we the form may trace of him whose soul, too large for vulgar space, in n dimensions flourished unrestricted. End of To the Committee of the Cayley Portrait Fund, 1874, by James Clerk Maxwell. Molecular Evolution, Belfast, 1874, by James Clerk Maxwell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. At quite uncertain times and places the atoms left their heavenly path, and by fortuitous embraces engendered all that being hath. And though they seem to cling together and form associations here, yet soon or late they burst their tether, and through the depths of space career. So we who sat oppressed with science, as British asses, wise and grave, are now transformed to wild red lions, as round our prey we ramp and rave. Thus, by a swift metamorphosis, wisdom turns wit, and science joke. Nonsense is incense to our noses, for when red lions speak they smoke. Hail, nonsense, dry nurse of red lions! From thee the wise their wisdom learn. From thee they cull those truths of science, which into thee again they turn. What combinations of ideas nonsense alone can wisely form! What sage has half the power that she has to take the towers of truth by storm? Yield then, ye rules of rigid reason, dissolve thou too solid sense, melt into nonsense for a season, then in some nobler form condense. Soon, all too soon, the chilly morning this flow of soul will crystallize. Then those who nonsense now are scorning may learn too late where wisdom lies. Footnote: the Red Lions are a club formed by members of the British Association to meet for relaxation after the graver labours of the day. End of Molecular Evolution by James Clerk Maxwell. The Mathematician in Love by William J. Macquorn Rankine. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. A mathematician fell madly in love with a lady, young, handsome, and charming. By angles and ratios harmonic, he strove her curves and proportions all faultless to prove, as he scrawled hieroglyphics alarming. He measured with care from the ends of a base the arcs which her features subtended. Then he framed transcendental equations to trace the flowing outlines of her figure and face, and thought the result very splendid. He studied, since music has charms for the fair, the theory of fiddles and whistles, then composed by acoustic equations an air, which when 'twas performed made the lady's long hair stand on end like a porcupine's bristles. The lady loved dancing. He therefore applied to the polka and waltz an equation, but when to rotate on his axis he tried, his centre of gravity swayed to one side, and he fell by the earth's gravitation. No doubts of the fate of his suit made him pause, for he proved to his own satisfaction that the fair one returned his affection because, as every one knows by mechanical laws, reaction is equal to action. Let X denote beauty, Y manners well bred, Z fortune, this last is essential. Let L stand for love, our philosopher said. Then L is a function of X, Y, and Z, of the kind which is known as potential. Now integrate L with respect to dt, T standing for time and persuasion. Then between proper limits, 'tis easy to see, the definite integral marriage must be. A very concise demonstration. Said he, if the wandering course of the moon by algebra can be predicted, the female affections must yield to it soon. But the lady ran off with a dashing dragoon, and left him amazed and afflicted. Equation referred to in stanza 6. L equals phi of x, y, z equals the triple integral over the fraction. The numerator is f of x, y, z, and the denominator is the square root of the difference of xi minus x squared plus the difference of eta minus y squared plus the difference of zeta minus z squared, d xi, d eta, d zeta. Equation referred to in stanza 7. Integral from minus infinity to plus infinity over L dt equals m. End of The Mathematician in Love by William J. Macquorn Rankine. The 3-Foot Rule by William J. Macquorn Rankine. A song about standards of measure. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. When I was bound apprentice and learned to use my hands, folk never talked of measures that came from foreign lands. Now I'm a British workman, too old to go to school, so whether the chisel or file I hold, I'll stick to my 3-foot rule. Some talk of millimeters and some of kilograms, and some of deciliters to measure beer and drams. But I'm a British workman, too old to go to school, so by pounds I'll eat and by quarts I'll drink, and I'll work by my 3-foot rule. A party of astronomers went measuring of the earth, and 40 million meters they took to be its girth. 500 million inches though go through from pole to pole, so let's stick to inches, feet and yards and the good old 3-foot rule. The great Egyptian pyramids 1,000 yards about, and when the masons finished it they raised a joyful shout. The chap that planned that building, I'm bound he was no fool, and now 'tis proved beyond a doubt he used a 3-foot rule. Here's a health to every learned man that goes by common sense, and would not plague the workman on any vain pretence. But as for those philanthropists who'd send us back to school, oh, bless their eyes if ever they tries to put down the 3-foot rule. British Association, 1864. End of the 3-Foot Rule by William J. Macquorn Rankine. To a missing member of a family group of terms in an algebraical formula by James Joseph Sylvester. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Lone and discarded one, divorced by fate, far from thy wished-for fellows, whither art flown? Where lingerest thou in thy bereaved estate, like some lost star or buried meteor stone? Thou mind'st me much of that presumptuous one, who loath aught less than greatest to be great, from heaven's immensity fell headlong down, to live forlorn, self-centred, desolate. Or who new Heraclid hard exile bore, now buoyed by hope, now stretched on rack of fear, till throned Astrea, wafting to his ear words of dim portent through the Atlantic roar, bade him the sanctuary of the Muse revere, and strew with flame the dust of Isis' shore. End of To a Missing Member of a Family Group of Terms in an Algebraical Formula by James Joseph Sylvester. The Infant Metaphysician by William J. Macquorn Rankine. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. A little boy went out one night, the little boy went out. The moon and stars were very bright as he ran round about. And round and round and round about and round about ran he. Says he, I'm running round about, oh round about I be. His head began to giddy-get began, and giddier still and giddier yet as round about he ran. And then he said unto himself, says he, is this myself that's round about, and is it really me? And then it grew so very dark grew it, that though he often tried to see, he could not see a bit. And then he thought his eyes were out, as out they seemed to be. Says he, I think my eyes are out, I think they are, says he. But his mamma came running out to look for little Sam. Says she, where are you, Sammykin? Says Sammy, here I am. And when he saw his dear mamma, who Sammy came to find, he knew by that, as well he might, he was not really blind. And then he knew his eyes were in, as in they well might be. Says he, I think my eyes are in, I think they are, says he. Note, this beautiful poem, in which the most touching simplicity is mingled with the most profound knowledge of the human heart, is, as the reader we are sure will learn with tears of delight, not altogether a vision of the illustrious author's benign imagination. It is actually, as we have been credibly informed, an almost literal narrative of an incident of the childhood of the famous Dr. Samuel Johnson, who wrote the Big Dictionary and Rasselas. End of The Infant Metaphysician by William J. Macquorn Rankine. End of a selection of 19th century scientific verse. Read by Ruth Golding, 2015.